So if you're familiar with creating point styles and point label styles, you can kind of really skip this section unless you really want to do it. It's not important for creating the rock surface, but we want to just take this opportunity to show you how to manipulate and create new point styles and point label styles. And it just gives us a good data set to work with to incorporate it into this part of the training. So by default, we're getting the X, it represents the location of the boring hole, and we're getting the point number, northing, or point number, elevation, and this description of that boring hole in this case. And we really want to look at it more as a symbol with the label up in the upper left corner versus the bottom over here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to that point group, and we will go to the properties by right clicking on boring rock data, and we can take a look here at the information tab that has a default styles using the basic default style and the point label style. So we want to change this to a different style. So from the drop down, we have already pre-set up point styles, and we could go through and try each one and try to figure out which one we want to use. But if you look over here, there's a preview window, and this lets us preview the style detail. So you can see here, if I choose benchmark, we can see that gives us that symbol. So it lets us look at the block or the style that's associated to this point style. So you could go down and look and say, okay, well, if we're doing trees, we would do that, or maybe a shrub, or we would pick tree for the tree. But we're doing boring and we don't have a boring style, so we can just click on benchmark. And over here you can change, you want to see the label or the point style, and we're looking at the point style. So this is the symbol we want, but it's used for benchmark. We could also use it for boring. So I'm going to click OK to this. And now that I have that point style, because that is the one we want to use, I can come in here and I can say copy current selection. So when I copy that, it makes a copy of that benchmark style. And now I can go to the information tab, and we can call this borings. And you can change this to boring. So style for borings. The marker is already there. That's what we're using. That's the block. If you want to use a custom marker, you can do that, or use an AutoCAD point. You can adjust the scale if you want. If you go to the 3D geometry, we're not going to worry about that, but it's going to put the point at the point's elevation. We can go to display, and this is where we're going to control the layer that this point's going to go on. So if we just use benchmark, then all these borings would go to that benchmark layer. We actually want them to go to the proper layer based off the National CAD standards. So if you don't have this, we have a guide for National CAD standards that basically is just converting this PDF in, and it makes it a little bit easier to use and a little bit more searchable. But if you come down here, you can see that you've got architectural style, civil style. If I was to go up and let's search for borings or geotech, you can see that the geotechnical layer list is using B and then B-BOR for boring, and then we've got ANN for annotation. All right, boring, that's just the boring detail. So we could use ANN as a designation for annotation. So we could put text as well if we wanted to. Usually the B in the first designator and then the second major category is really what we want to adhere to. The rest, you have a little bit of leeway depending on if you have your own CAD standards or style. So I'm going to click on the layer, and it's going to open up the layer selection. We know we don't have any boring information or boring data, so we're going to create a new layer. We're going to give that layer name B-BORE, and that would designate the symbol, or we could do -HOLE for boring hole, right? Because that's actually what we're doing. It's a boring hole. We can leave the color the way it is and the rest of the stuff the way it is. That's fine. So it's going to click OK and OK, and now that changes the marker for a boring hole. For the label, we'll go ahead and change that as well. We'll create a new layer, and we'll do B-BORE and we'll just stick with the ANN, right? The annotation. That's fine. We'll click OK. And for the text, well, we'll leave the text the way, or the color the way it is. All right, we'll leave the blue, and that's fine. but you can change the color at the same time. So that's the boring style, right? So we're gonna click OK. And now we have our point label style, okay? Now if we apply this, you'll see it change the symbol, right? So we can kind of preview what we're looking at. Now we're still using this point label style. Now we really only care about the description. So if I pick description, same idea as I can come over here and click this, where you can look at the different styles, right? What they look like. So all we really care about is the description, right? We don't need the elevation. We just want to say B1, B2, B3. So we're going to use a description only one. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. We'll go ahead and make a copy of that current selection. And we will call this boring label. And we'll take a look at the general tab. The general tab, this is where you can choose the font style. You can see the layer that it's going to go on. It's under V-Node text. We want to change that to our B annotation. Okay. The orientation is object, and it's plan readable true. So when we rotate our screen, it's always going to be true. That's fine. Now when we look at layout, we can see that right now it's on the middle right. If we change that to the top left, okay, that's the location, right, of the text. That's the anchor point. If you look down here, it says middle left. It's on the left side of the text. So let's change that to bottom right, and now you'll see that it moves it over there. So actually, top left, let's make that, we'll go top right. Nope, sorry. Top left is fine. That's right. We have an X offset, right? That's what I'm looking for. So it's offset a little bit. So if you get rid of the offset here, you'll see that it moves it over to that side of the text. Now, if we click apply and OK, and then apply again, you'll see now our boring holes are where we want them to be, the upper left side of the symbol. A lot of other things we can do, but that's all we needed to do, right? So in this particular video, just showing you how to create the point style and the point label style. So we'll click OK to that. And now we've got our borings looking the way we want them to look, right? So again, if you know how to deal with the points and point label styles, you can really skip this step. This is just, we're taking the advantage of the opportunity of the data set and show you how to create these boring labels. Now we'll continue on and we'll show you how to create the rock surface so that we can add that to our data shortcuts and use that in our design.